All right, and we are live. How's it going, everybody? Hopefully everything is working. Please do let me know if something seems off, if like audio's bad or you can't hear anything, can't see anything, something. This is in a new location. I'm at like an AirBNB, and I had to reset up all my desk and everything. It's also a new stream overlay and like stream design and all that, and yeah, so a bunch of new stuff. So we'll see if it's all working all right. Let's see. Actually, having trouble pulling up my chat. Let's see. I think I could use the web version for now. All right. So, how's everyone doing? It has been a little while. Some of you might have seen, like, just to kind of explain my absence a little bit, I've been going through a home remodel, which is why I'm in this new location. So I'm in like an Airbnb right now, and my home, see if I can pull it up here. If you want to take a look at that. Oh. All right, sorry, more technical glitches here. See. This is what I was looking for. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. So here's a picture of my home after day one. A little bit crazy. And here, let's see, let's get another picture on here. There's another one. So my home's getting like completely torn to shreds, and so my wife and I had to move out. And for some reason, so I see that some people are chatting, but it's not showing up in my chat. Shoot. Hold on. No, I see. It doesn't matter if they're from YouTube or not. I just assumed that they would come in, but I saw that one, so I guess I missed a few chats. I'm not sure why. But anyway, hi Shinigami. It's good to see you. Debbie Droid says it works. Dan Clare says, hi Leland, the overlay is looking good. Yeah, thank you. This overlay was, it's designed by, I went through Fiverr and found someone, but they're very talented. If you're interested in working with them, I kind of tweeted about them a little bit ago. Let me just pull up some information about them real quick. So this is who I worked with, Alternative Solutions, and definitely would recommend. They did some great work. So if you're, I don't know, if you're a streamer or interested in some freelance design work, this is a good option for you. Okay, so that is, I guess, the status update for you. Let's just go ahead and get into some work. Today, what I'd like to do, there's an optimization that I added to the compiler a little while ago. Let's open this up. So here's our function body transformer, and let's see. So what happens is when we visit a composable call, if it's a call to remember, then if this optimization is enabled, we basically, in certain situations, we optimize the remember call, sort of like we inline it, but like we inline it manually, and we do so in certain situations with like fewer groups in the slot table, so it's like a little bit more efficient. And so when I first wrote this optimization a while ago, I added it, and several bugs happened that were like kind of difficult to reproduce. And I disabled it because I didn't have time to investigate, and then later enabled it without fixing any of those bugs, but we weren't able to reproduce any of the prior bugs. So I was a little bit nervous about turning it on. So what I did is I turned it on behind a flag, and I asked some people to turn the flag on in their apps and see if something broke. And lo and behold, something did. So Chris Baines, or was it Chris Baines? Who was it? Oh no, so Nick Butcher tried adding this to the Owl app. And so in Alpha 07, he tried turning it on, and it produced an exception. So what I'm going to do is just go and check out. I'm going to pull down this app locally, and we'll try and reproduce the exception so that we can figure out what's going on here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead. Actually, I think I have compose samples. Okay. So I have compose samples pulled down locally. Branch origin develop. Is that what we're looking for? Android dev. Okay, main I think is what we're looking for. So let me pull. It's been a while since I've worked in this repository, so probably got a lot to pull down. Hey Andre, thanks. Abir says, hey Leland, the new UI looks cool. Thanks Abir, appreciate it. Let me know, hey Kartik, let me know if anything's kind of weird about the UI or anything like that. Anything you think I can improve. One of the things that I did, so in the previous overlay, sometimes I would add the emulator and it would kind of get in the way of the code. So what I ended up doing was I ended up kind of setting up this sort of configuration where the phone just kind of goes and my webcam's a little bit smaller, and then the chat is what's overlaid on top of the code, which that might be a little hard to read, but I think it's maybe a good trade-off. Like here it is in Android Studio. So I think the chat gets a little bit harder to read, but I don't know. Maybe we can think of some other ways to improve that. But I think it's better than the emulator just kind of like blocking a bunch of the code like it was before. So yeah, I can remove the borders. It's probably not a bad idea. Uh-oh. Something freeze. Oh, okay. Yeah, Andre, I might try that out. I'm not sure. We'll see if the phone screen feels too small or anything. I'm noticing some glitchiness in OBS. I wonder if the stream quality is going down. This, you know, this AirBNB definitely doesn't have the level of internet connection that I have at home. So let me know if we're skipping a bunch of frames or anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna say git checkout. Yeah, it's freezing. Laptop's pretty hot. I guess we'll see how bad it gets. One thing I could do is I could try and reduce the resolution or something, or downsample it. I don't know. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. I can also, I'm gonna quit one of my studio. Yeah, let's quit this one. Close a few apps here. Hopefully that'll help a little bit. All right. Chill code says high quality but dropping frames. Okay. Well, I just closed a few apps. Let me know if that helps anything. Not sure it will. Okay, so in here, the OWL app is, I guess, what we want to open. Okay, I closed the wrong studio apps. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, oh, this is frozen. Hold on. So you can see in this, oh, where is it? Yeah, so this is the flag that I want to add. And let me close this window. I'm gonna open the OWL project. Yeah, the bit rate is really slow. Well, picked back up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, Shinigami says, I recently read an article about JetBrains Projector running your IDE in the cloud. Yeah, I saw that as well. I think that could be like an interesting option for maybe like if I wanted at home to set up like a dual PC setup, I could use that for studio or something. Definitely something to explore, because it does seem like of all the things that kind of slow down or like destroy my ability to stream, it's like studio's kind of the worst. Oh, you know what? I see a problem here with my overlay. Hold on one second. Oh, it's back. Abir says the time when you have nothing to do but you're waiting for Android Studio to finish indexing. Indeed. Normally it doesn't take this long, but I'm slowing my computer down quite a bit. So this is a little bit bright here. Oh my gosh. So slow. Kartik says, can you point out the difference between KSP and the compiler plugin API? Yeah, you know, to be honest, I don't know that much about KSP. I know that it seems from what I've heard that KSP is much more powerful than like annotation processors, and so it seems like it's probably a pretty good direction. But I don't want to say anything that's incorrect here, and so I'm not sure exactly what is possible with KSP and what isn't. I know that there are a few things that we need to be able to do in our compiler plugin that is definitely not possible with annotation processors. For instance, we're modifying existing code. So we take an expression and we transform that expression into something else, which you can't really do with annotation processors. You can only sort of add code. The other thing is that we're influencing the front end of the compiler a little bit, but we're trying to reduce how much we're doing that. And so like one example of that is how we prevent you from calling a composable function from outside of a composable function. Another thing that we do is we essentially make a composable function like a lambda, like a composable unit lambda. It's an incompatible type with a unit lambda. Like they're different signatures. And so that means that we have to participate in the front end to some degree. And I don't think that Kotlin symbol processors will be able to do that. And even like that's one of the more extreme things we're doing in terms of interfacing with the front end of the compiler. And then the things that we're doing in the back end of the compiler is pretty dramatic, but you might be able to accomplish a lot of it with Kotlin symbol processors. I haven't looked into it, and I probably should. It's a good question. Okay, so we got things loaded here. What do I want? I want the Kotlin options here. This is the Android. Okay, where's their compose version? Oh, okay, so we can just go here. I'm gonna add that. And trying to figure out which compose version they're using. Okay, Alpha 7, that's good. Okay. So let me just try and build this app and see what happens. Actually, I don't have my, let me go grab my test device so we can run it on that. You guys can look at my fancy be right back screen for a moment. All right, I'm back. Got my Pixel here. Hopefully it has some battery. Plug it in. All right. Let's try and build this now. I think. All right, so I'll switch over to phone mode. There it goes. Okay, it's kind of weird. I don't know why the emulator is much bigger than it normally is. Let me try and tweak this here. Okay, it's a little weird. I do actually have Visor Pro, so I'm not sure why it's, I guess I'm not logged in. Okay, sorry for these problems. This is it's kind of annoying. Okay, so I'll I guess try and improve that later on, but for now, working well enough, I guess. Sorry for all the waiting in the stream. I guess it's typical kind of glitches on the first stream in a new location. Hey Danish Ansari, how's it going? So I'm curious if anyone watching has tried out Compose Desktop. Oops. Hey Skylight Color, how's it going? Thanks, appreciate it. This is the wrong flag, not what I meant to change. What's going on, Professor Nuris? Thanks for joining in. So, while that's building. So no one's tried out Compose Desktop? Sasha says, tried simple demo with Desktop Compose, looks awesome, but Android X package seems to be confusing on desktop. Yeah, it's a common complaint. I agree. Not sure if anything's gonna change there or not. But... Okay, cool. So looks like we were able to build. So unfortunately, I kind of thought that this would insta crash or something. But it doesn't appear to be. Ah, okay. Well, there's a crash. What did we get here? Haha. Okay. Well, that's at least promising. So let's just launch this again. Seems like when I hit the whatever this fab button is, that's when it crashed. Or maybe it was in here. Yeah, okay. Alright, so that's not too difficult to repro. Let's look into where and why this is happening. So, SlotTable 1906. Let's try opening that to start. Where am I? Shortcut's not working. SlotTable. So some of you might have seen I did a few streams on code reviewing some of Chuck's new changes to the SlotTable. It's like basically rewrote the SlotTable, and this error is coming from the SlotTable, but I don't think it's a bug from that change. What I think is happening, because well, I guess maybe first we should verify that this exception does not happen when we turn this flag off. So let's do that first. So there's, turn the flag off, and let's make sure that we can't reproduce it now. So this is the check that's failing. We could set a breakpoint here. Okay, what? Let's try rerunning it. It's interesting this is happening in this back handler. So I kind of want to check that out. Navigation. Okay, so this back handler has this on commit, and I mean this could be a clue because on commit is basically just a call to remember. And so it could be that this function is kind of this function is somehow getting compiled to be in a weird state. Although I don't know, not really. I mean, because this is inside the runtime, and so we're not changing that. That doesn't seem right. So it could be maybe more related to this. This remember right here, especially since this is at the top of the function. Yeah, that's my guess, is it's related to this call. So it's built. So let's see if we can get it to crash. Okay, so it succeeded in doing this with the flag off. So this does look like a repro of this issue, which is good. It's what we want. And so I'm going to go back to that. So they're making a new back callback for all of these. All right. I have an idea for how to re-trigger, or like, so this optimization, oh, sorry, I'm running behind on a few comments here. So Elliot Troop says, hello fellow Android dev. Hey Elliot, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Sasha says, don't know much about Flutter, but seems like Compose and Flutter are going in similar directions, both based on Skia and backed by Google engineers. Correct me if I'm missing something. Just curious why multiple solutions. Maybe some team forces join expected. Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to like conjecture about this type of thing. I think people like forget that just, Google's a big company and they work on competing products sometimes. I mean, not that like Compose and Flutter are intentionally competing or anything. It's just that, they're different orgs, and Android wanted to build a new UI toolkit, and Compose is what we built. And JetBrains, saw what we were building and thought that it looked like a useful way to build a desktop UI solution on top of it. And so that's the direction they're heading, and we're supporting them in that effort. So I don't know. It's not too much more to say other than that, I guess. But I guess just not everything's a conspiracy theory. Like, and I'm not, you're not sort of wording it in that way, but I just see a lot of people conjecture about a lot of things and just think it's kind of funny. Okay, so crash is repeating. Now, what I'm gonna do, so I think it's this remember call. This remember call is getting optimized with that flag turned on. And so I haven't gone into all the details of like how the optimization works, but one thing I know is that it only works if the remember calls are like at the top of a group, right? So what I'm gonna do is just create like an empty composable function here, and I'm just gonna call it above it. And what that'll do is that'll end up de-opting this remember call into a normal remember call. And I want to find out if that fixes it first, and that at least kind of tells me that it is this remember call that's causing the issue. Hey Gabriel, how's it going? Thanks, appreciate the. Glad you like the new design. Okay. So if anyone's kind of curious as to like how this optimization works and everything, or like what the goal is behind it, one thing that you can think about is, so remember itself is a composable function. It's a composable call, and when you can't find declaration to go to, it's annoying. Let me open up. So this call to remember is this one. And so it's an inline composable function. And what remember does is it's sort of like an alias for this cache function. And then it calls changed on each parameter. So what cache is cache is basically a function that will save a value in a slot table, and if you pass in invalid as false, then it'll give you back the saved cache value. And if you pass in invalid as true, then it'll run this block and it'll return the new value that's created. And so that's all this is. This is a very low level compiler API on the composer. And so remember effectively does that. What it does is it caches a value where it's invalid if the input parameter has changed. And remember is like a very highly used function. It's very, very important in Compose. And the optimization I'm doing is essentially treating this remember call as like an intrinsic. And so we're essentially kind of handcrafting the implementation of it to do the right thing. But if we had no knowledge of remember and we just wrote it exactly this way, what the Compose compiler is going to do is it's going to generate a start group call and an end group call around this expression to represent the composable function. Every composable function kind of creates like one group. But in certain positions of the call, so if you're at the top of a group, the top of groups in Compose allow for you to store data just directly into the slot table without adding groups. And so if you're at the top of a group, this remember call can just sort of be replaced with directly with like changed and cache calls. Another thing that it does is it doesn't need to call changed if the parameter here to the remember call is one of the parameters to the enclosed function. Because if it is, then we already checked to see whether or not the value had changed. And so then we can just generate a bitwise expression to represent whether or not this value had changed. And so then we save some slot table space by doing that. And so by adding a call at the top here, what I've done is I've made it so that this remember call is no longer at the top of a group. And so because of that, I can't do this optimization anymore. So let's see. Will this fail? Okay. So that's interesting. So it's still failed. Let's see if the exception was the same. It's a different exception now. I mean, the exception message is the same, but it's a different. It's happening at a different location. So. It's happening inside of a lambda. Course details, lessons. Let's find this course details. Uh, 357. So this happened here. And so there's a remember call here. Then it would be this remember call. And so that also makes sense. So let's just continue to verify that these are the issues here. I mean, we're not really doing much good if all we do is just disable the optimization everywhere that it works, and then we're not really verifying much there. But at least in this case, we'll be able to just sort of turn back on one optimization at a time and verify that way or something. What is temp 2? Sort of silly. So I'm going to try that. So Kartik asks, is Compose Desktop Compose on JVM backend only? And are there plans for sort of multi-platform UI toolkit? So Gabriel answered, currently it's JVM only, but I know that the JetBrains are working on some Kotlin JS prototype. Yeah, right now, like Compose Desktop is it's a JVM target kind of desktop UI solution. Right now there are multiple people working on enabling the Compose compiler for other targets, like Andrei Shikov, who I think is maybe listening right now and was in the chat. He's helping out with the JavaScript stuff, and JetBrains is probably working on that as well. And who knows where that's gonna go, but I'm all for it. Let's see. So username is required. Says something about the new design. Maybe you can put a background for the chat part. Makes it harder to read when it doesn't have a solid background. Yeah, I agree. This is the problem that I was struggling with. So I've got like this version, which has the chat up on the right here, well, over here, I guess. And then I wanted to put the phone and like have the phone not, cause a bunch of problems. I think maybe, and I just didn't know what to do with the chat. So maybe what I'll do is maybe I can put like a gradient on the bottom that like will go over sort of the top parts of the chat. I'm not really sure. I'll try and play around with it, but you're right. I mean, it's definitely problematic here. Like it's maybe a little bit better if we're looking at code that's like left align, but yeah, it's not great. So sorry about that. In the meantime, I'll just hide the emulator because it's not super important at this point. let's see. Marcel says, "Hey, Lynn, great to see you back in the zone. Hope the Wi-Fi in your temporary location is up to snuff. Looking forward to the new optimization work." Yeah, hopefully, you know, I don't. It looks like the Wi-Fi is kind of holding up. Like I see a bit rate of like 5400 right now, which is like decent. But it's, yes, we're definitely dropping some frames. So I might try, and while I'm in this Airbnb, I might try to downsample and like stream at 720p or something instead. It's not ideal, but it might be good. The thing that worries me about downsampling is that it'll cause my CPU to do more, and it's already pretty overloaded. Yeah, Damon asked about the font. It's Dink Mono, and you can find it here. So, okay. I kind of forgot what we were doing. Okay, so I think we added this temp2 here, which I think was supposed to fix it. Okay, so now let me just show you in the emulator. So we're able to do this navigation now. So there was essentially 2 remember optimizations that had broken. And it's surprising that I don't know. I mean, we have multiple tests looking at this remember optimization that didn't fail, and so I'm just surprised that it's failing so easily here. But let's figure out why. Let's go back to this one. This seems like a little bit simpler to deal with. Prolanza says, "Hey, have you upgraded macOS to Big Sur yet? It's out now, and I'm afraid I need a guinea pig." I don't think I have. I very rarely upgrade. I like wait until Google makes me, and so I have not. Let me see though. Yeah, so I'm on Catalina right now. So can't help you there. Okay. So we know that this remember is causing the issue. What I want to do, let's navigation AT, okay. Let's rebuild it again with that optimization, and then I want to look at the bytecode. So this should break. Whoops. Go here, okay. Broken. Let me switch back to this. So now what I want to do is let's see. I want to find the class file for navigation KT. Okay. All right, so let's just look at the main class right now, which will have the method in it. So what I want to do, I'm gonna run it through JavaApp and copy it. Then let's go over to VS Code. Let's paste that in here. So here's our bytecode. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. Okay. So what are we looking for? We are looking for the backhandler. Okay. Here's our backhandler function. And so basically, if you remember, the very first thing we're doing in the backhandler is we're calling remember and creating this on back press callback. And so before that happens, there's probably going to be a little bit that Compose generates to deal with the parameters and stuff. So let's try and walk through some of that. So we call start restart group, which is expected, and we call that with an int and a string. The string is debug only, but that's expected. Okay, and then let's see, we're gonna call changed. Thing we're gonna do, so there'll be some ifs and stuff, and we're gonna check the let's see, so the 1, 2, so the int in the second slot is the changed parameter, and the int in the false mask. So we're gonna see like an iLoad. So iLoad 3, that's loading the default bit mask. Oh, and then, oh, sorry, I miscounted. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So iLoad 3 is the iLoad 3 is the changed bit mask, and then iLoad 4. It's interesting. I guess there's no iLoad _ 4 here. So iLoad 4 is the default mask. And so, we basically say, some ifs and stuff like that, and then we end up calling changed. And we're gonna, so Z is Boolean here, and so we're calling changed with a Boolean, which so ALoad 2, that's the composer, and then iLoad 6, so 6 here. Something got stored in 6, which should be this Boolean. iStore 6, so it's storing the Boolean at slot 0. So that all makes sense. So then we do that whole dance again for the on back, which is a function. So it's going to be an object here. interesting. Okay, so this has a start defaults and end defaults group. So I think I know what's going wrong. And I think I know why our test didn't catch it. Okay, so what do I want to do here? So let's do this. So I'm going back here. Thanks, Nicholas. Appreciate it. While Leah Manchu asks, what are we doing today? I'm looking into a bug that's happening with this optimization that I wrote a while ago, and I turned it on behind a flag so that we could figure out what was happening in some userland code. And so So that's what we're doing right now. So there's this bug with this remember call here, which I have an optimization that reduces the remember call into a more efficient call, and it's causing a crash. So I'm trying to figure out why that's happening. And I think I know. So to verify this, let me just... so I'm just kind of dummy composable function here. Make bool, and what I'm gonna do is change the default expression for enabled to be that, and I want to see if that fixes it. Actually, I don't think that's the right way to test this. So I think it's the live literals transform that's breaking this. So there's a no live literals annotation that will turn it off for this declaration. So let me do that, and we'll try that instead. I think slick or sleek are both, I mean, they're both positive terms. I think they mean slightly different things, but there's pretty similar connotation. So I think both are fine. But thank you. Okay, so let's see if this fixed it. Let me turn the phone back on here. Okay, that fixed it. Aha. Okay. Now here's the next test. Is I think if I turn this back to, or if I make this a composable call here, I think that this will break it. So let's see. That didn't seem to break it. Okay. So now I'm not quite sure. So I thought that adding make bool. So adding, okay. Let me try and explain what I'm thinking about right now. when like compose allows for you to make composable calls inside of the default expression here. And because of that, we have to we insert at the top of the function, we insert code that handles the defaults. And one of the things that does is it calls composer.start defaults and parent composer.end defaults. And this is kind of like a group, right? And if that, then this remember optimization won't work. I think. And so the weird thing that was happening was, so it turns out if I default to something like true, which is like a, it's a static expression, it's like constant here. Let me change, getting a little dark. So if the expression is something constant like true, then I doesn't do this because it doesn't need to, because it knows that it's a constant expression, it's never going to change, and it's not going to we don't need to throw a group around it. But what happens is that there's a transform that we have that turns this into something like, it turns this into a function call. And I think that there might be something that this isn't understanding, that function call could change something or something like that. I'm not really sure. Let's try and figure some of this out. So we turned off live literals. So this, let's build this. And so just to see what I'm talking about, let's go over to the bytecode again. And so we see that we do this start defaults and then end defaults. And then down here, this is where we're doing some of the code to this is like the remember call, right? It's this right here. And so the important thing to notice is that we're calling next slot before we call any sort of start group. It's the first thing that happens after skip current group. Defaults. Oh no, okay, this is all the default stuff. So I mean, really, I think, yeah, there's no start group generated, but there is this like start defaults and stuff, and so that's not good. I think that's the problem. So now with, what did we change? So we turned off live literals. And I think because of that, this start defaults, end defaults thing won't exist anymore. So let's verify that that's the case. So I've got our bytecode here again. So here we are back in the back handler. Got change. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, we go right after this skipping call. We go right to next slot. Still no start restart group or anything, and this works, and that's why. But so now the thing that surprised me was I thought that calling make bool here, I thought that this would add it back in, which it doesn't appear to have broken in that case. So let me again pull this bytecode. Go back here. Okay, so this generated it again. Ah, interesting. Okay, so here's what I know. So here's my current conclusion, is that the live literals transform is causing the, like, basically I have code in the remember optimization that checks to see whether or not the like starts defaults end defaults thing happened, and if it did, then it deops. It avoids the optimization. But I think that check appears to be looking at the original expression here and not necessarily what it got transformed into, which in the case of live literals is going to be something different. And so I wonder why that would happen. But I think that that's enough. That is probably enough to repro here. So what I'm gonna do, we'll open up the compiler code and we'll start writing a few tests to deal with this. So let me close Studio here and open up compiler. Okay. Let's see. Death Priest says, "Are all your libraries non-GMO and ethically sourced?" Of course, not even a question. Perlantis says, "I'm thinking about creating an IntelliJ plugin for dependencies, new version highlighting feature in Gradle files for dependencies from build source dependency object. Do you know if this exists or if this is feasible to make?" Honestly, I'm probably the wrong person to ask here. I don't know much about like these Gradle features and stuff, and the only IntelliJ plugin I've really built is Compose compiler. So probably not the best person to ask. No, say real. So what is the name of your IDE font? It was already asked, and I really need to set up some like, you know, exclamation mark font thing so that we can stop answering this 1,000 times. But it's dank mono, which everyone seems to love. So cool. Okay, let me trying to set up Studio here. So now we are now in the compose code base. So this is now the function body transformer, and let's go find the remember stuff. Okay. So I honestly don't remember all the details of how this optimization worked and what the logic in it was. So we'll be figuring some of this out together. So when I visit a remember call, what do? I loop through the parameters and I try to save them. So every remember call is going to have some set of input args and then the calculation arg, which is going to be a lambda. And so all this code is doing is just separating those. And that's about it. Then I go ahead and transform the input args and save the results. Okay. So I don't know why the calculation arg would be null. Damon says, I have a 700 line of code file with composable functions on a 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. I'm still wondering why it takes about 5 seconds for code completion to come up. Yeah, that's a good question. I am not sure how much compose is at fault here. It may be related, but it may not be. But I do know that I think the most recent version of the Kotlin plugin got a lot of speed improvements for code completion, and I wonder if Canary's not able to take advantage of that yet. I'm not sure. But I mean, feel free to file a bug and get some answers from some of the folks on Studio on, like, you know, why this is taking so long and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm not sure that this would ever happen, or if I'm just like dealing with the null case here. I'm going to set a breakpoint here just in case it does. I'm kind of curious why. So as spread args or not canalide remember group. I think this is the magic sauce here. Okay, so I think what I do is when I run into a remember call, I kind of walk back up the tree to all of the parent scopes of my current location, and if any of them, or well, if as soon as I run into a function scope, or well, actually any group scope, if it has composable calls, then like if composable calls already happened, then I can't do the optimization. And that it looks like that's all it does. Interesting. Okay, so I see now why the so I get what happened. In the case where I added the like make bool function, the make bool function was composable, so it was falling into this case, which is correct, and so it saw a composable call and then decided that it can't do the optimization. The problem is when it's a non-composable call, then it won't get caught by this, but there is a group, the start defaults group. And so this is interesting. I mean, it's like, it's not really composable calls that matter. It's whether or not we're at the top of a group, and we're using composable calls as a proxy for that information. But the start defaults is another situation. Okay, so really what we want here is like, if the scope has composable calls, or if if it requires defaults group, which that doesn't exist right now, but we can probably add it, and so that's probably what we should do. Before we do that, let's create a test to verify this, figure it out. Let's look at the remember intrinsic transform test. Okay, so these are the tests that are trying to verify this transform. So let's add one here. That seems like the right place. So this is the thing. So let's say we've got some int here, some int, and then we don't even need to use the int anywhere. And it needs to be restartable. So foo equals whatever. So let's just say foo is just an empty class here. All right, so this shouldn't, this should sort of exhibit the problem. Test optimization fails if defaults group is used. Okay. So I'm going to go back here and well, here, I'll just delete this. It's fine. Let's try and run this. See what happens. Okay, Satpar says, I'm quite new to Compose. Is one of the motivations of Jetpack Compose to remove the need to write XML layouts. I myself do not see that as a big issue, as it keeps layouts separate from logic and you can hook in the state to the layouts. Is view hierarchy traversing the big performance issue at large? So this is a good question. So it's not that like XML is, you know, the enemy here or anything like that. The problem, the way I see it, is that XML layouts create a false promise of separation of concerns. And the reason is that XML layouts are completely static and they're required to be, right? XML isn't a programming language, it's a markup language. And so what happens is that once you have dynamic logic in your UI, once the UI that results from something code, like that code produces, then XML layouts start becoming just what the UI looked like at one point in time, but not what they'll look like, you know, at any point in time. And so what you typically end up with is you end up with code that kind of goes and pokes at the layout that's inflated after it's inflated. And so this is like where you end up with code like find view by ID and like any sort of code that is like an equivalent, right? I mean, there are safer ways than find view by ID, but it's all sort of the same problem. Is you go and you use this layout to create an actual view hierarchy at runtime, and then that view hierarchy is a mutable thing, and you start changing it to make your app work. And then that's where the problem comes in my mind, is that you end up writing a lot of logic that has this coupling to the XML layout, and it needs to understand what that hierarchy looks like, and that may even change over time. You may start adding things to the hierarchy or removing them or whatever. And it's that logic that I think is very difficult to write. It's very error prone. And so I think the problem is that people seem to think that UI is logicless, right? Like that as soon as I'm writing logic, I'm outside of the realm of UI, and that should be like in, my business logic or something like that. But there is a lot of UI related logic, and as soon as that logic is needed, then XML has failed in my mind, because at that point you then have to write this glue code that is where the errors start to happen. And so what Compose does is it allows you to write code that produces UI, and it's written in such a way that the definition of a composable function that you write, that definition is valid for all time, right? And so it can't sort of fail that promise, because the only way to mutate the hierarchy is to run that function. And the dynamicism that results is just written as language, right? Like we're leveraging the capability of the Kotlin language, with control flow structures like if and else and while and for, and any utilities that can be built on top of that, like for each, and any sort of logic can be expressed in Kotlin, because that's what Kotlin is built for. And the style of compose lets you kind of define your UIs that may or may not contain logic in a way that doesn't have this like shallow ceiling that XML does as soon as logic enters the picture. And so I don't know, I think that's kind of what we're going for. And it's not that like, it's not like any sort of war against XML or anything like that. It's just that dynamic UIs are the expectation now, and XML has a lower ceiling than a language like Kotlin might have, for that you can express all sorts of things in it very readily. And so that's kind of the idea here. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. Tejahan says, am I seeing non-compiled composable function? I'm not sure what you're asking. If you're like talking about like the code that we're working on here, what this is like some fixture that I wrote that we can write some code, and then what it spits out is sort of like the pseudocode result of the compose compiler transform. And so that's sort of what we expect. And so let's see what resulted from this test. You can see it's quite a bit here. Let's see. Okay, so this innocent looking function here ends up generating all of this code, right? It's kind of a lot, but let's see what it does. So this is kind of like the bytecode that we were looking at. We do some stuff around the parameters of the function, and we can see here that we have this start defaults, end defaults block here. And this is where the default expression is used. And so the reason that we had to do this is because this is an arbitrary function here, and there's kind of a list of reasons why it's needed for us to do this, but we jump around the default expressions. And so the existence of this group is what makes it so that the remember optimization isn't valid anymore. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening. That's not what happens. So this is the fact that the remember call gets turned into a direct call at cache. That's the optimization. And so that's what's wrong here. And so the test passing will have it showing remember here instead. So we now have a test that sort of reproduces this issue, and let's go ahead and try and fix it. Separ says, thanks for the explanation. I think I have to write some compose code and see examples to see its true benefits. Yeah, definitely don't necessarily, take my word for it. I think generally for this type of like programming style, which a lot of it's not unique to compose. Like you could say all the same things for instance, for like React or Flutter, or even Swift UI. But I think generally, like, there's this point where it sort of clicks with people, and like you never want to go back to writing UI in any other way. So I don't know, give it a shot. Let me know if you have that clicking moment. Damon says, what are your thoughts on wildcard imports for composed projects? I don't know. I don't have any problem with it. I mean, Google prohibits wildcard imports in their own source. The reasons for that are mostly related to like static analysis, I believe, where you can. It's very easy to see what a given function is pointing to if you have no wildcard imports, and there are a lot of tooling that relies on that. But I mean that's sort of a very specific Google kind of problem. So I don't have any problem with it. What's this? Okay. So what we want to do is we want to add this like scope dot has defaults group. Let's just say that, right? So I think we can just add that here. So we'll start off with false, and then I'm just gonna see where start defaults. What do we call this? Call this here. What do we call that? Call this here. Okay. All right, so basically if we end up inside of this branch of this if, then we're gonna generate a start defaults and defaults group here. And so if that happens, then we're, the scope has default group. So where is this scope here? I think we passed the scope into this function. So yeah, so we have scope. So I think we can just say scope that has defaults group equals true. Let's see if that works. And at this point then, this will probably fix it. Afzal says my Google Assistant woke up when you said Google. That's funny. I'm surprised that it doesn't happen to me on stream or something. I guess my phone is decent at knowing when I preface it with okay. Setters private. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm not sure if I want to follow the convention that we had for the other things. It's not really important for this. So I'm curious what people think about this like whole wide angle camera here. Like I stole this from, there's like a streamer, Harris Heller, who like has this really nice wide angle shot, and I really want to have that at some point. Like right now my camera is using the Canon webcam utility, and so the resolution that it has is actually pretty small. It's like 576, 9 something, I don't know. So it's not a full 1080p. even though the camera is perfectly capable of shooting in 1080p. And so I might move to a capture card at some point. And if I do, then my camera could fill out this whole section here. But what I did right now is like I have it like mirroring just on the edges with this like scrim. It's a little bit weird, but I kind of like the effect that it gives, and it like, I don't know, it's just, I thought it was cool, but I'm curious if anyone is like, if it like triggers them or something and like they're really annoyed by it. All right. Yeah, FSL says the mirroring is funky. Yeah, you don't really notice it because of the scrim, but if you know, it's weird if my hand moves off camera or something like that, then you can kind of notice it. But I thought it was a cool effect. But I'm curious what y'all think. So Setbar says, I was thinking about observer patterns in ViewModel and how does composable functions deal with it? One of the problems I face with the observer pattern is that I have to be very careful not to emit multiple events. In the case of multiple events, how does composable functions perform? Are the view hierarchies intelligent enough not to redraw themselves? Yeah, so this is a pretty general question, I guess. So there's a few things, few pieces of this question to break apart. So one is, are the view hierarchies intelligent enough not to redraw themselves? So they're intelligent to a point, right? And so in general, composable functions, a lot of the machinery that we generate with the compiler transform is machinery to avoid calling composable functions when we don't need to. And so a lot of composable calls skip. And if they skip, then nothing will redraw underneath them. Similarly, like there's separate sort of, you know, layout and draw and validation passes and stuff like that. And so they don't always update if nothing changes. But there are ways to like it's not guaranteed to not redraw if nothing's changed, right? It just, there are certainly ways to fool it, so to speak. But in general, Compose is pretty good at this. The other thing that you ask about is like the observer pattern, and you say one of the problems I face with the observer pattern is that I have to be very careful not to emit multiple events. So I guess this is just kind of related. You're saying that like if you're saying that something changed but it didn't or something like that. I mean, so one, the observer pattern works very cleanly with Compose, and you can like, you know, there's various libraries that kind of help you with this. Like for Flow, we've got some extensions on Flow like collect as state, which allow you to use the value of the flow inside of a composable function and then automatically have that composable function subscribe to updates to that flow. And so, you know, that's one thing that we do. And there are like equivalent things for, you know, you name it, like, you know, like RX observables and stuff like that, but and live data and all that. The other thing is Compose is always batching by default. So if you have multiple things that happen inside of a given frame, multiple things that are invalidated, they'll all cause an invalidation, and then a single recomposition will happen per frame to kind of reconcile all of that. So you sort of get the batching behavior by default, which often means that like emitting too many events or something isn't something that you need to worry about. So I don't know, that might give you some insight into what's going on. There's also, you know, there's some talks that you could watch that might give you some more kind of intuition here. There's like, you know, one of the talks I gave, at ADS like last year. I think it was called Understanding Compose. That's like one thing you can watch. And I think that there's another one given by Sean McKeon that talks a bit about this as well. It's like really good to watch. But yeah, in general, I would say that like not as big of an issue than it was before, probably. Okay, so we're back to this test, and let's see. So the test changed because we are now calling remember, and that was the problem. So we fixed it, so to speak. Okay. So this is good. So that fixes that. The funny thing is like, so I'm glad that we found this bug, but I'm still not confident that all of the bugs are fixed, because I'm not sure that. Well, actually, so this was an issue before. I thought it was maybe live literals related, but it's not. It's it really just has to do with the defaults group. So maybe this is enough. Maybe this is the bug that was plaguing us before that we couldn't figure out. That would be great. So I think what I'm gonna do is let's put this up in a CL. The changes here, pretty minimal, pretty reasonable. Let's see. Let's see, so title, the avoid remember intrinsic, or actually let's say account for defaults groups. Okay, that's good. And I don't think we created a bug for this, so just save it at that. One other thing I'm noticing is the placement of my little now playing widget with with the terminal is kind of annoying. I'll think about improving that, but it's like kind of hides an important, like the bottom line on the terminal is like kind of important, and it's hiding it right now, or hiding part of it at least. Okay, so got another stage change here. Reordering them, and then let's push this. Okay. Kardik asks, why don't I use the IDE for version control? I don't know, just personal choice. I guess I'm just used to the command line for Git. That's all I got. No No real thought behind it. It's just what I'm used to. Separ says, cool, I'll look for these talks. It would be great if you can share those links. It was hard to follow because of drop-in connections. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, let me find a few talks. Let's see. We go here. We see we're live here. Let's see. So if you go to my playlists, I've got a conference talk playlist.
Send button.
Which these are all mine, so that's not very helpful. But this is the one I was talking about. So I'll pop that in the stream here, and then I don't know off the top of my head what the other talk I was thinking of was. Let's just see what it shows up with. So I'm not sure I'll find it. Maybe this one. I don't know if that was. I don't think that was it. There's another talk I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure I'm gonna find it right now. So I'll maybe try and look for it later and put it up in a next stream or something. Damon says, "What kind of terminal do you use? Have you modified it?" Not very much. I mean, I have Oh My Zeesh installed, and that's about it. Which, you know, if you want to Google for Oh My ZSH, if you don't use that and you like are a developer that uses terminal, you should check it out. It's pretty useful. Chillcode says, any plans to build an Android desktop app in Compose with one code base for the dog fooding stream? That's a good idea. I mean, I haven't really thought much about it, but we could play around with the Compose desktop on the stream. I have a few other things I want to try or work on first, so probably not in the near future, but it's definitely a good idea. Let's see. I need to log in here. Okay, I don't know why, but my key fob thing isn't working right now. I think it might have to do with some update I got. All right, well, let's see. Skycolor asks, what would you say is a cool new thing that's in Alpha 7? Well, the stability inference and propagation that I've been working on the stream is in Alpha 7, so that's one thing for sure. You know, also we like rewrote the whole slot table. That change landed as well. Those maybe aren't so cool to all of you, but they're cool to me. As far as other things, I'm not sure. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't pay super close attention to what goes out in each release. Let me see. We just look at the. It's weird that this only shows alpha 4. Anyway, okay, that's kind of weird. Where are the release notes? Okay, here's this. So let's look through some of these real quick, I guess. Let's see what ended up in Foundation. Not everything ends up in a release note, unfortunately. I guess one thing to think about, but API changes. You know, I know that people pretty heavily on the lazy DSL, so like this I guess went from being experimental to like a sanctioned API, and so this stuff's pretty cool if you haven't like seen it. So like yeah, let's see if there's a sample. This is using lazy column. Yeah, so I mean this like DSL, this is like if y'all haven't seen this, this is like pretty cool stuff. So basically something that's really common if you're using like recycler view or something is that you've got like a list of items that you want to throw on a recycler view, but you've also got like some header or something that you want to also use in the recycler view, like it's scrollable content, but it's not really an item in the list. And so it's really annoying in recycler view to like handle that stuff with like a recycler view adapter. And so like this DSL makes that like super easy, where you can specify like items or like a single item, and it kind of uses both of those in the list like as you'd expect and recycles them independently and stuff like that. And so this is a really clean API, and I think we're happy with where it ended up. Like okay, here's an example. So like you can have the item here. And this is like indexed versus non-indexed, and it makes a lot of the common like the common ways you use a recycler view that have been kind of painful with recycler view end up being super simple here. So that's like one thing to be excited about. I don't know. I'm sure there's other stuff, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of like what we're working on now, is like refinement and stuff like that. There's not like always, big, sexy new things every release, but, and there shouldn't be. That's not like the goal, Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything specific. Removed opacity from draw shadow modifier as it was confusing. Yeah. What's your favorite benefit in the new SlotTable compared to the previous one? Well, the main benefit of the new SlotTable is that it's faster, but there's a lot of ints that we end up made up of groups. Basically, it's like a tree, and we generate a lot of groups for composable functions. And groups are like, before this, in the old SlotTable implementation, they were, it was an object. So we allocated a group and then we stored it in the SlotTable. And what we do now is we don't allocate a group, and because all of the metadata that we needed from a group it was just like a set of ints. And so now what we do is we have there's like an array of objects, and then there's an array of ints, and we store the ints in this like parallel array, like an int array that's contiguous in memory, and so we use that for a lot of the SlotTable logic. And so that means that the types of things that were the really hot path execution for some of the SlotTable stuff ends up allocating fewer objects, ends up boxing fewer ints, and it ends up just resulting in like faster, more optimized instructions, and so it ends up being a bit more efficient. But other than that, I mean, it's not really like, it's not an API change that you should be able to observe in like user-land code. So it's not really that important for you all. Okay, well, I can't seem to for some reason, but I'm gonna figure that out later. But I think that's a good time to stop. So we ended up tracking down this bug, figuring out what was happening, and writing a fix for it. So I'll call that a successful 2 hours here. And I hope that was interesting to some of you. Cycler view usage gets easy with Compose. For example, maintaining a selection state. There's a selection library recently that does. It's not a simple plugin. There's a cycler view. Without that library, I have to maintain a selection state for every item. Yeah. I think selection is something that they're thinking about, but I don't need DSL. It should be very straightforward code to write. But maybe that could be like a fun one to try and do in some of our dog fooding or something. All right. Well, anyway, I'm gonna sign off now. But it was good to be back on Twitch and on YouTube, and I'll see you all soon. We'll probably do another stream tomorrow, as long as I don't have anything weird going on with the house and all that. But I will be streaming this while I'm here in this Airbnb, so assume I'll be back on schedule, and I'll see you all later. Cheers.